Well,
Hey!
here we are live with our coffees. Is that instant this week or is it real
It's
coffee?
not instant this week. I've watched the start of last week's live over and over again
Mm.
and just laughed. Yeah.
Yes, it's very good.
But
Coffee war.
next week, I will have the best coffee in this country. You can
You
guarantee
will.
it.
100%.
Do you
Yes,
want to
very
tell them
much.
why? Do you want to tell them how? Or later?
No. We'll leave it as a surprise.
Oh, okay.
Let them work that out for themselves. How will Lisa have the world's greatest coffee when it's over here in West Australia, right here in my cup?
Well, we'll see. I heard
Okay.
teleportation is a cool new
Yeah.
technology.
So, like anything at Circle Leadership, we like to keep it simple. So let's keep this simple. Today's live is all about getting everybody on the same page. We've been working now for the past, probably 8 weeks or so.
Pages.
Yeah, pages and pages. Probably for the past 8 weeks, sharing content around purpose, why you need to have a purpose, how to use it, and how to bring your people in terms of engaging people with purpose. We talked about values and how that's the unique thinking in terms about the problem we're passionate about solving, our purpose, what makes us unique in the way we think about that, and how to empower our people to make smarter decisions through those values. We've also looked at vision and why you need to have this inspiring vision, this picture of the world that's far greater than all of us combined to inspire the people. And then we've also then talked about having a mission in terms of then who does the organization need to become? What is the boat we need to build to sail out to that yearning for the vast and endless sea? And get everyone to be able to see what the boat looks like. And then last week, we talked a lot about strategy and different methodologies now and how to reimagine not only your strategy, but the way you think about strategy for your business in this uncertain and unpredictable world that we're moving into or already in the midst of. And so we talked about all that and making sure that you take a new way of thinking and not putting it into your old way of doing, but take a new way of thinking and drive a new way of doing. And so we've covered all those topics, which is really, really awesome. And we're grateful to be able to share that with everybody. But I guess this episode today, this live today, is really all about how do you put all that together and in a sequential way that makes sense to the people in the organization so you can get them together on the same page. So what I want to share with is, I guess the reason why we use what we call the Business Evolution Roadmap, which is here behind me, and we're going to share with you what that looks like. And by the way, if you want the roadmap, it's just #roadmap in the comments, and we'll get you a copy of the roadmap sent out to you. For those of you who did already comment on some of our other stuff with #roadmap, we had a little glitch with the technology in terms of the where the link would take you to. But I believe Tiana's fixed that or fixing that this morning. So, but #roadmap.
We love Tiana.
Yeah. Yes, she was up very early this morning fixing technology problems. I saw a message about 4:30 this morning from her. So, trooper, absolute trooper.
She keeps us on the straight and narrow, or as straight and narrow as you and I can be kept, which is challenging.
Yeah, very much.
Anyway, speaking of straight and narrow, let's get there.
So, I guess it was about 4 years ago after doing a case study I've talked about this before, like 25 business owners and leaders over 4 months in their kitchens, in their engine rooms, looking at all the challenges they were having in their business. A lot of the feedback that I got from those leaders was around the fact, that they were frustrated. Like they knew the business was doing okay. So if you're a business owner and you're a leader and you have an established business and it's doing okay, but you know that it's capable of far greater, it has an infinite capacity for greatness, and you're just struggling to actually get that out of the business. What we found as talking to the leaders is that there was sometimes with the leadership teams, there was conflicting agendas, different perspectives of where the organization should go. At the leadership level, there was overlap. People were doing the same jobs as each other and stuff. And from a leadership point of view, especially when you have multiple leaders in the organization or multiple owners, and poor communications and no clear role and responsibilities, nobody understanding what their true strengths and areas for improvement are and how to leverage and maximize those in the organization. And then, of course, that would then lead on to the rest of the organization suffering from frustration and the conflict as well. And what it turned out to be is most people end up working then longer and harder to theoretically get better results, but ultimately they're even just seeking to maintain the results they're getting. But it seems like we have to work longer and harder to even get those results. And then it gets to the stage where a lot of leaders felt that they had to do the thinking for their team and do the work and jump in and do the work because the people weren't getting enough stuff done. So then, I have to do it now, which is then causing the leader, of course, to continue working longer and harder. They weren't delegating. They weren't empowering their people to make smart decisions. They weren't engaging their people at the deepest level. They weren't allowing their people to bring their best self to work, not intentionally, but it wasn't set up to allow people to bring their best self to work. And then there was no systematic way to help them become the best version of themselves and do their life's best work while in their care and beyond while they were there. So it was really fascinating to see all this stuff from a personal leadership. So if you're a leader and you're experiencing any of that, please take a deep breath. There is hope, right? Because this is what we found with those leaders. And we sat down and said, okay, well, what can we do? How can we help them with that? Because what that actually translated into was 4 common challenges that all these businesses had with all that stuff going on. And the first thing was a lack of clear goals and expectations across the organization. And we talked a lot about that last week when we were talking about strategy. But there was a lack of clear goals and expectations. And what we found, of course, whenever we do surveys in organizations, when we do engagement surveys and that, one of the first two questions we usually ask is, are you aware of the strategy of this organization? And do you understand how your work fits with that strategy? And most times or not, those are the 2 lowest scoring questions on an engagement survey.
Which is just mind-blowing if you consider why people are employed to be there and do a job and they actually don't really know what or why. Yeah, crazy.
So they know what their job is, but they don't understand how the job looks in context to everything overall, right? And once again, we want to help people create work that matters, that has meaningful work, right? So if they don't understand, well, like I'm just here, do you want people to just come in, live paycheck to paycheck and work paycheck to paycheck and just do the thing and check in and check out and go home? That's fine. Then keep doing what you're doing. But if you want people to bring their best self to work and then be able to become even more while they're there and, be able to be innovative, creative, curious, and and question and challenge and find new ways to better serve your clients, well, then you need to help them understand the bigger picture. So there was a lack of clear goals and expectations across the organization. The other thing was there was a lack of culture and strategy alignment. So it's like the old adage that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So what we found is that there was a culture over here and a strategy over there, and the 2 things didn't go hand in hand. And we know that once again, as anything, culture being the habits, attitudes, and beliefs of the people, how people think and feel about the business. If that isn't very good, it doesn't mean you can have the world's best kick-ass strategy in the world, but if the culture isn't right, that's where the concept of culture eats strategy for breakfast every day, because that culture will destroy that strategy. Right? So this lack of culture and strategy alignment was really interesting. So lack of clear goals and expectations, lack of culture and strategy alignment. And then the third thing was a lack of accountability across the organization. And it's what I consider a lack of an accountability system. So I'm not saying that people weren't accountable in certain spaces and places, but there was no system of accountability within the organization. And leaders, if you're watching this or listening to this, please understand when a leader ever says to me, Dave, I wish my people would be more accountable. My first question to them, Lisa, is,
well, how are you accountable to them?
Correct. 100%. How are you showing accountability to them? Not like, I get it for the financials and all that, but how are you demonstrating accountability to them?
Yeah.
Are you even, are you being accountable to the accountability? I know it sounds corny, but are you being accountable to the accountability? Are you letting them get away with things? And it's just become the accepted norm here that we tolerate. You get the performance that you tolerate, not the one that you want. You get
and
the
Tiana's.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, Dave. I was just going to say, and Tiana's just put a comment up there saying it all comes down to systems and structures, and that's perfect. And I want to speak to something that Tiana shared yesterday. Yep. You mentioned about it's not even just a lack of accountability, but it's a lack of accountability system, because we fall to the level of our systems. So if we don't have an accountability system, if it's null and void, there's not going to be any accountability because there's no system to form a foundation for us to even fall, let alone rise to. So system, structures, organization, all of those things, operational systems, we know how important they are in our businesses, but it's the same and it's true for accountability.
Yeah. And to your point, to the quote that you're making from James Clear in his book, Atomic Habits. Says you don't rise to the level of your goals, you only fall to the level of your systems. So you can have clear goals and expectations across the organization, but if you don't have a system of accountability, a systematic approach to that, then you'll never rise to those levels. You'll only fall to the level of your systems. And when there's no system for accountability, well, then guess what? You're not going to rise to the level of those clear goals and expectations.
Nope.
So that was the third thing. And then the fourth thing, surprisingly or not, was that there was a lack of leadership, depth, and strength in the organization. Now, I'm not talking about a lack of numbers of leaders and managers in the business, but leadership, depth, and strength in the business. And to us, of course, leadership is all about helping other people become the best version of themselves to do their life's best work while they're in your care and beyond. So there was a lack of that depth of that in the organization. There wasn't a culture of people lifting each other up. There wasn't everyone sitting there supporting and helping everyone become the best and do their best while together. So those were the things that were happening. So all that frustrations, the conflicting agendas, and all that I talked about earlier, were representing themselves in the lack of clear goals and expectations, lack of culture and strategy alignment, lack of accountability, and lack of leadership depth and strength. So then what we said is, well, how could we help those organizations then deal with all that frustration, minimize the overlap, minimize the conflicting agendas, get everyone on the same page? And so after doing that case study, I said, well, what if we could create one page that actually had all of it on there? Now, when you talk to organizations today, you say, they said, wouldn't you love to get everyone on the same page? And I wrote about this yesterday, I think, or Monday's post I put up, and a lot of business owners, leaders go, yeah, we have our strategy, here it is here. And it's like their business model canvas, right? So they take the business model canvas and it tells everybody, what we do, how we do it, who for, and how we get it to them, which is great. So it's a strategic document that tells you, here's our business model. Now, there's two challenges with that. In the business model canvas, by the way, if anybody uses it, it's a great tool for helping you define your business model. But please understand this. Every business model has a shelf life. The question you need to ask, has ours expired or we just don't know it yet? Every business model has a shelf life. And if you look at Blockbuster business model had a shelf life. Taxi company's business model had a shelf life. BlackBerry's business model had a shelf life. Toys R Us's business model had a shelf life. Kodak's business had a shelf life. These are all the biggest companies in the world who had amazing resources, strategy, money, you name it, everything, and they still expired because they were past their use-by date by at least a year. Okay. So if you just have that, that's fine, but A, make sure that it's not expired. And two, if it's not expired, but it's not inspiring either, right? Because that just tells people how and what you do. It doesn't explain why you do and doesn't put it all into context. You know how we talk about, it gives them content, but not in much context, so then they can't understand the concept of the business.
I love that so much.
The concept of the business is to passionately solve this problem in the world for these people, right? And through the lens of these values, to create a world where, by building this business, and here's what must be accomplished to do that. That's the concept. Okay. So what we decided to do then was, how can we actually create a template that any business could use to put the frameworks, because we also talked about the 4 frameworks before as well, right? Imagine we could create a template that would take all that and the 4 frameworks, the 4 frameworks onto one page. And it's like, you'll never be able to get all that on one page, Dave. Mm-hmm. That's what somebody said to me once. So I was saying, this is what I want to create. I want to look at this thing so I can help these businesses and we can create all this and put it all on one page. Could you imagine if I could just have one page?
Did that person suggest that Dave Clare couldn't do something? Yeah. Little did they know that was the fuel that Dave Clare needed to make the thing happen. Yeah.
One of those guys who tell me that I can't do it, and then I'll just show you how.
Whatever.
Yeah. So what we want to do then is I said, okay, well, imagine if we could create something like this template that would create a culture and strategy alignment, first and foremost, that we could show people actually how to align culture and strategy, not have them as 2 separate things, and show them actually that culture is actually giving birth to strategy, right? So like a mother protecting his child or a father protecting his child, your culture then protects your strategy, okay? So we wanted to create something that would show them how to align culture and strategy. And then through that, then it would help them to understand how to focus on what matters most. Because what you find, a lot of that frustration and those overlapping agendas and, or conflicting agendas and overlapping work is that people don't understand what matters most. But if we could get everyone to understand what matters most and they could focus on that, and the old acronym for focus, follow one course until successful. So here it is here. This is what matters most. Yes, there's all this other stuff we could be doing, but these are the things that must be accomplished. So we create a culture and strategy alignment. We can create an innate focus on what matters most. Then we can also take the culture of the organization, because we can all have that on one page, how we think and feel about that. So the team understand that and they can speak that love to the market. And then the market or brand which is how the market and consumer thinks and feels. They can then respond in kind, and we can get everyone to fall in love with why we do what we do for them. Okay. So we'll have a culture and strategy alignment. Imagine we could set that up. Imagine if we could set an innate focus on what matters most. We could create this culture and brand relationship. And then the last thing we could do is then bust the myth that execution is hard. Because the problem is, ideas are easy, but execution is hard. So imagine being able to have all that and then show people how to execute at a far greater rate than they ever have before. That's what I wanted to take and put all that on the one form. And that was what gave birth to what was initially called the Model Business Canvas, with a play on the business model canvas, was actually helping people build a model business. And then now is today the Business Evolution Roadmap. And that's what we have. So I wanted to share all that with everybody because that's the really important stuff here. And now I'm going to show you the roadmap, which you can see behind me here. This is a big version of it. This is the one that's like I put up a post yesterday. I was sleeping underneath this because for me, and it's really important to understand. So for me as a leader, I can, I've always dreamt about having an organization that would do amazing work in the world and serve amazing people. And in order to do that, I know I needed to build a team around that would buy into everything that we're working on. And the only way to do that was to do this stuff, was to actually make sure everyone in our organization is on the same page. Because when I first started, I had people in my teams that weren't on the same page. And so now I have the same page. I can sleep beautifully at night under the blanket of that same page, knowing everybody's on the same page.
I'm so excited. I'm so glad that photo finally come out, because when you got that awesome new poster, I was like, oh, this is going to be fantastic. We're like, oh, what can we do with it? We can sleep soundly at night knowing that all of this stuff is taken care of.
Yeah, 100%. And that I know that everybody is working towards the same thing and can see the same thing. Everyone understands the narrative of our business and the story that backs the narrative up. Like everyone can see that. And Tiana's comment there, happy team and happy clients. Yeah. So the more engaged your team are and happier your team are, that's when I talk about speaking that love to the market. Imagine when your team is fully engaged in the work and they know they have a personal connection to this public sense of purpose, and that they're empowered and they're thinking of themselves, they're responsible, they're free to think, they're creative, they're innovative, always thinking about how we can improve our clients' or customers' lives. We're always thinking about our customers. We're anticipating the future needs of our clients. All the stuff we've talked about before, right? And they can do that. And they can speak that to them, but their clients can't help but respond in kind to that. The market can't help but respond in kind. You know what it's like when you're served by somebody who loves what they're doing.
Absolutely. For sure.
Right? And then you just want to be a part. Like, those are the types of people I want to serve me in this world. I don't want to be served by somebody who hates what they're doing, where they're doing it, and who they're doing it with. That doesn't add to my life, my experience. Right.
And you can't, when you're served by those people, like you say, you can't help but to respond in kind. And so you kindly want to keep going back there and giving them your business. It's an honor and a pleasure and a privilege to be able to exchange money energy with you for a service. I love this. This is amazing. How do we get to do more of this?
100%. Right. And so, I think Tiana's just talking about like pretty much your favorite thing, freestyling in the framework. So the organization is a framework which people can freestyle. One of the other things, actually, this is really interesting, because one of the things I found leaders, business owners, once again, if you're watching or listening to this, I know you're not going to like this, but a lot of you are control freaks. Okay, so we built this thing, and I'm. Hi, my name's Dave. I'm a control freak. But we're, you built this. You built this thing, and this need to control it, because you don't want to dilute it and everything like that, and to lose the magic in which it was built on. And so, this organization starts to build because of the great reputation and the great work you're doing in this world. And then you have all this organized stuff around you, which is an organization. And then guess what? You're trying to control everything. because you're afraid to let go of that control. But imagine if you actually understood what you should be controlling is the frameworks, not the work inside the frames, right? So, or the people doing the work. You need to control the framework. And if you have the same page and you have all this place, you can control the frameworks. So, and even Tiana and I know we were having a conversation yesterday, and we were talking about a certain word that was being used. I said, no, we don't use that word right here. And she came back with, oh, yeah, that's right. You're the guardian of the philosophies and principles of this organization. And I said, yes, my job is to control the framework in which we operate in, not the people doing the work inside that, right? Just understand to hold true to that. So I can control that. So when I understand what I can control, because I can see it, I can label it, I can show it, I can demonstrate it, that's what I need to control. And our clients have found over the past 3 or 4 years now working with them, especially the control freaks in our businesses that we serve.
We love you so much.
But they're not. But what they're understanding is they're freaking out because they, like, in a good way now, because they know what to control, and then they create the space and capacity for the rest of the organization. And this is why before they're hitting plateaus. So all you leaders who are businesses plateauing, it's purely because you're not evolving, you're not increasing your capabilities and capacity for greatness. Therefore, your team have no room to move. And this is what happens. Then all these good people go, bugger this out. But when you evolve and create space and capacity for people, then they have room to evolve. And then your business will evolve as well. But that's when you start to take control of the frameworks, not the work or the people doing the work inside the frames.
And it's really interesting, Dave. Like, I've spent a lot of time in big corporations, corporates, government, and it's those businesses and organizations that are so tightly bound by those old school hierarchical structures that don't give good people space to expand. And it's always the good people that go. And you think, man, it's such a shame, such an opportunity for this business, for this corporation to have these incredible people doing incredible work in their business, but they're out because the leaders and because the organizational structure doesn't provide the space for them to do their best work and to add the value, which they absolutely can. And so they go.
Yeah, 100%. And that's usually because the leader's not evolving themselves. Right? We talk about leadership, depth, and strength in the organization, and then we lose great people. Right?
Yeah.
So just understand that. So let's take a look at the roadmap then. Okay, so you can see it behind me, but I want to bring it up here now. So this is it in small scale, but I'll zoom in on a moment. But so this is the one page. So when we talk about, here is your purpose, right? So why does our business exist? Then our values, no more than the 6 core values as to what is it that we value and how do we define those things. And by the way, please remember, when you're doing your values, it's the definition of the value, not what does it look like when it's in action. What does it mean? Because what is the thought that we want? This is the unique thinking of our business here. So for us, say simplicity, which means freedom from complexity. Insight, which means to proactively think and act in advance, right? So, like, these are here's what we value and here's what it means, right? And then if we've been living that purpose through the lens of these values, what's the world that we want to create together? Can you imagine a world where, right, in the next 10 or 20 years? And then we talked about a couple of weeks ago, your mission is then, okay, well then, if that's the world that we see, who do we need to become in the next 3 years to start creating that world that we see?
And that's the moving piece.
Right. So this is when you've looked at your 3 ingredients of an invincible culture: your purpose, your values, and your vision. Something that engages, empowers, and inspires, or drives, guides, and inspires your team. That's the framework for your culture. Then the link between culture and strategy happens right here between vision and mission. Because the last piece of culture is this inspiring vision of the world. So everybody knows they can see a future of the business. Therefore, then they can see them having a future in the business. I was talking to someone yesterday up in Geraldton, on Tuesday up in Geraldton, and he was working for an organization. And he says, the first time I heard my leader 2 weeks ago talk very small about the future of our business. And he said, it was that moment there. For a week, I was struggling. And I realized it was that conversation that he had that made me realize that I don't have a future in this business because I couldn't see the future of the business.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about when we talked about vision. And I shared with them, well, on our live when we did vision, is exactly what we talked about. When people can't see the future of the business, they can't see themselves having a future in the business. Right? So this is where you create the link between culture and strategy, because your strategy could be. Sorry,
Dave, I was going to say, can you just speak a little bit at some stage about the simplicity piece and how many words and why as well. I think that's really key here, so that doesn't get diluted.
Yeah, 100%. I'll stop it right here. So just after this, so your mission then is what dictates strategy. Your strategy isn't to make X amount of money this year or profitability or whatever. Your strategy is to become this organization that will start to create this world. And then you'll map out these objectives. Now, to Lisa's point, we work on what we call the 66-word challenge. You should be able to tell me your purpose, your values, your vision, and your mission in 66 words or less. Now, please understand, Einstein said that you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. Who should understand your business so well that you can articulate it so simply and powerfully in 66
Every
words?
single person in the business, from the CEO to the officers to the 2IC to the tuck shop lady and the lady that comes in at 11 o'clock and cleans the floor.
100%.
Or man.
To the janitor who's cleaning the White House to understand that we're putting a man on the moon, then that's what his job is, to help do that.
Also, on that, can I just say, this is a little bit of a passion rant for me, and it's so not relative, but I feel really called here. When we're speaking about the beautiful people in our organizations and in our worlds, in our malls, in our public spaces, beautiful people that are there making sure that rubbish is in the bin, the toilets are clean, the janitors, the cleaners, the earth angels that are doing that for us. Can we please remember that if the CEO of the organization didn't turn up today, who would notice? But if that person that looked after those affairs didn't turn up, how many people would notice and what effect would that have? I just wanted to drop that in there. Sorry, that's just something that's so important to me.
Yeah, I've always said to my kids growing up, and so when you look at people doing those sorts of roles in the world, if they're doing a job that you wouldn't want to do, you should honor those people.
Oh, so much honor and respect.
You do not want to do.
And we see you.
That you wouldn't want to do, right?
Yeah. Anyway, I digress. Sorry.
No, thank you for sharing that point. So when you look at this here, but everyone in the organization should understand the purpose, values, vision, and mission and articulate those in 66 words or less. Okay. You should be able to tell me your purpose in less than 10 words. You should be able to tell me your 6 values and 5 words or less definition to describe each. So there'd be 36 words there. 10 there is 46. 10 words to describe your vision or less, because if you can't explain it simply, right? And 10 words for your mission. So that's where it's 10, 10, and 10 plus 36 is 66. I find some people's value statements have 36 words to describe one value, let alone 66 words to describe everything. So on this
much like hard work.
Yeah. On this one page, so you'll have your mission as to who we need to become. Then, as we talked about last week, your objectives and your key results. Well, what must be accomplished in the next 3 years? What do we need to do in the next 12 months? How would we measure that? What do we need to do quarter by quarter to achieve this in 12 months, to achieve this in 3 years, to become this, to start creating this world by living these values and getting up every day to do this thing. So imagine when you're bringing people into your organization and you can go, hey, here's our organization, why it exists. Here's how we think about it. Here's the world we're creating together. Here's the boat we're building. Here's what the boat looks like 3 years from now. Here's the boat in the next 12 months. Here's what we're doing right now to get the boat out under the water. And then here's why the work that we're asking you to come and join us matters a lot, is to help us to do this. So not only can people understand why the organization exists and all this, but now they can see what it looks like and that you're a person with a plan on what must be accomplished. And please understand, nowhere in here does it say how to. We're going to talk about how to next week, actually, in talk about tactical planning. But this is all a what must be accomplished strategy, because what must be accomplished becomes mandatory. When we get there is arbitrary. But you're able to take all that stuff we talked about over the last 6-7 weeks now and put it all onto one page. You'll have your culture, your strategy, your performance. So your cultural framework, strategic framework, your performance framework. And the last part we'll talk about then is your tactical framework, which we'll talk about next week. But this is the one page. And when you're able to share this with everybody, and you have this up on the walls in your office, and then you have ours up there, and here it is. Here's Circle Leadership's one here, the original of it.
One there. I've got one there. I've got 3 there. Everywhere. Live and breathe the stuff. Love it.
Everyone now knows where we're going as an organization. Okay? And this is why you want to have everybody on the same page.
Yeah.
And this is just a big honking version of it.
It's a big blanky version.
Yeah. So if you would like a copy of the Business Evolution Roadmap, just hashtag roadmap in the comments. I totally encourage you. Like, it's such a simple template to put all this information on, and it's just a simple flow. Here's why we exist. Here's how we think about it. Here's the world we're creating. Here's the boat we're building, or the mission of who we need to become. Here's what it looks like in 3 years. Here's what it looks like in the next 12 months. Here's what it looks like in the next 90 days. And then at this point here, at the 90 days, which we're going to talk about next week, is going, how do you think we should do this? I'm not, and once again, this is where, when you want to get people involved in the work, involved in decisions about the work, is going, how do you think we should do this? So we can help that person bring their best self. Tell us, how do you think we should do this? Once we're very clear on what must be accomplished and what the key results are, we go, well, okay, in each of those results, what do you think the simple step-by-step plan is to do that? And that's what we're going to talk about next week when we talk about building your tactical plans.
I'm so excited for next week for a bunch of different reasons, but tactical planning and the how-to and the playing the game quarter by quarter, that's my jam.
It is, because that's the great work we've been doing with all our clients all around the world right now, is helping them map out those simple tactical plans to execute at a far greater rate than they ever have before. Yeah. Colsey, thank you for tuning in, mate. Colin is he's doing amazing work in the world with geothermal in plumbing and all that. Like unbelievable the work that Colin's doing in his organization. Mate, thank you very much. We'll definitely get you the roadmap. And everyone else who's tuned in, thank you so much. Like I said, sometimes we can't see all the comments that come up. But we really appreciate your time and attention. We're going to wrap it up now, but get that roadmap. And if you need any help, just put comments in there. We'll do whatever we can to assist with you, or go back and watch all the other videos, download the other workbooks, because it will show you how to complete all this stuff. Each of the step-by-steps are in all the other workbooks we've shared over the past few weeks. Until next week, when the special edition of Thursday Morning Lives occur, I'm not sure what's special about it, but there's something going to be special.
A little bit special, the special kind of special.
Yeah, very kind of special. Thank you very much, everyone, and hashtag roadmap, and we'll see you next week. Oh, and apparently, before quick, the roadmap link is finally working correct, because Tiana's been on it since 4:30 this morning, 4 hours. Yes. Trooper, all hail, Tiana. We're not worthy.
Oh,
Thank you very much.
We love Tiana so much.
All righty. We'll see you guys all next week.
Okay. Bye. I'll see you next week.